Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here. Mama's Well. Yes, she is. Well, hi, everybody. We are in the rain here. We have like a real front moving through. So if and we're at the studio is in a metal building, and so if it starts to get loud, just know that's what's going on. It's lots of rain. So it's good for us Houstonians because our cool fronts don't last long, and we get super excited when they come through. So that's what's going on. You can hear it.
Like giddy.
Listen, giddy. Yeah, we get excited. So listen, can you hear that? That's the rain. It's coming. We're having chili tonight. Okay, well, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining. I had a request for this episode a while back, and so I've been trying to get this expert to come and join me for a while, and I finally got her, so I'm really excited about this. But during COVID, one of the things my younger friends were asking me a lot about was, what did I know about the Enneagram? And I was like, I've heard of it. My boys asked me about it, and they had me take some tests, but I don't really know what it is. And so during COVID, when I had a little extra time, I started digging into it a little bit. And I got a book that someone recommended. It was called, I think it's called The Road Back to You or something. My expert here in a minute is going to tell us what it is. But I read this book, and I spent a while. I spent, I don't know, a month or so just kind of reading that book and analyzing everybody in my home. They loved it. And I discovered some things about myself. But I know just enough to be dangerous. So I want to talk about Enneagram today. And then if we have time on this episode, we're going to kind of talk about how it relates to parenting. If not, we're going to have this beautiful woman come back again. So welcome this week's guest, Enneagram Coach, Kelly Burnett.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Hi, I'm glad you're here too. You were hard to get.
Well, you know.
You're a busy woman.
I am a little busy and started a ministry about 5 years ago, and, you know, kind of doing a podcast thing's not feel real natural. This is my first one. So
you're scared?
I might have been avoiding you a little bit.
That's okay.
To be honest.
I'm scared too.
Yeah.
It's just that I just decided, I turned 50 this year. I don't know if you know that, but I decided that I could not be afraid anymore to do things like this.
It's so awesome.
I had
so
to.
I
had to. So I just keep plowing through, even though it is scary.
We say at Soulwell, that's the ministry I started, do it scared.
Do it scared.
That's what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't feel really scared right now, but
You're
it's just something I haven't done.
scared.
It's unnatural at the moment.
Yes, I have a hair in my eye. Hold on. Okay. It might still be there. Okay, it's off. All right, we're good. Okay, I can see you now.
Yeah.
So, Kelly, I was telling everybody, I know you heard this, but during COVID, I had a little extra time on my hand. I'm not really, I'm totally joking. But for some reason, I got moved to dig into the Enneagram thing. And it was very intriguing. And you may not know this about me, but I have done a lot of self-exploration. And I'm going to get you to tell them what it is first, but I'm going to get you to tell them. I have done a lot of that. So what I found was it was this really simple way to understand myself. So that's all I really know. I know a little bit. I know my number. I got to stop. I know enough to be dangerous. I want you to tell us, what is the Enneagram?
Don't we all?
Yeah. What is it?
Yes.
What is it? Where'd it come from? I know it's been around a long time.
Yeah. So the history of the Enneagram is disputed, is what I would say. So it's been around a minimum of 2,000 years, but many think it could be 5. And the reason why it's up in the air is because back in the day, the way the Enneagram was taught was sitting around a campfire, very much like how the Bible was passed down by generation.
Wow.
And they'd sat around by a fire and they would talk about these things. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't written. It's only been in the English language written in like a book 20 years or so. Like it's that old. Right?
Wow.
So Ennea means 9, gram means map. So it's a map of 9 spaces and it is a personality profile. Mm-hmm. However, it has a spiritual dimension. And that is why I selected to use it as the tool, because when I was introduced to it think it was like 15 years ago was the first time I was introduced, but then I couldn't find anybody that could be a coach or teach me in the Houston area. And so did a little reading, but then kind of dropped it. And then it was, I think, 10 years ago now, or close, between 7 and 10 years ago, I was involved with a community up in the Chicago area that Ruth Haley Barton leads. And she is a spiritual director. And in those world, spiritual director kind of means, it sounds weird because the person that's the director, and I'm trained in that too and certified, is that we're listening for how the Holy Spirit, how God's moving in someone's life, and they use the tool of the Enneagram there. And that's what it set it apart for me. I'd always been kind of love the Myers-Briggs, love the DISC when I was back in working secular world, but the Enneagram it has this space for movement. So every other personality profile, well, first let me go back. A lot of people don't like profiles or they don't want to look at them. They don't put me in a box, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I first learned was that the way our human brain works is we compartmentalize everything, right? If I were to say jeans, everybody knows what jeans are. If I were to say blouse, you can see them in your head. A doorknob. And so as humans, that's the way our brain works, that God designed us. And so that's how we take in information and perceive and can communicate with one another.
Right.
So we're doing the same thing with people. We're putting them in categories, right? And when we do that, we might not be doing it accurate. That's where a lot of judgment comes in, and where we lose compassion and empathy and all those things if we don't know how to do it properly. Right. And so the Enneagram gives you a lens not only to learn about yourself, but then to find compassion and helps you understand stories and work with other people. Yeah. And the God element is the most beautiful part, because when you find your space, it's done by intelligence centers. So there's head, heart, and gut intelligence. Okay. And, today, back in the day, it was just IQ was all anyone used to talk about. But now, even the business world, EQ is super important. And
emotional intelligence. When you say EQ, we're talking about emotional intelligence.
Okay. Yeah.
And so let's just say this, slow this down a minute, because I'm following most of this, but I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Head, heart,
and gut.
Yes.
Okay. So head would be like IQ.
Yeah. Because
Heart
we know our
EQ.
body feels things in these places. We get a headache, we get a tight chest, panic, and we get tummy aches.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. And they actually have now proven the science. The beautiful part is how the science is proving what those of us that are Christians have known for all these years is that what God said was true. I mean, and we need all three intelligences to be in balance. Yeah. I see you kind of have bar stools over there, but they're the 4-pronged ones. In my room now where we do ministry, I have a 3-pronged stool to remind people as a visual that it doesn't matter whether you're a head, a heart, or a gut person. You need to have balance in all three. That's the way to having growth. Okay. And
now, how does that connect to the Enneagram?
So in the Enneagram, there's 9 different spaces. Okay. So we'll start with the gut space. Okay. So there's 8, 9, and 1, and we're going to have a diagram for them to see.
Yes.
Right,
yes. In the show notes. And honestly, right now, if you're totally confused, Google. Can they Google it?
Yes. You can totally Google it.
Google an Enneagram. What is it called?
It's the Enneagram Map. I mean, it is a map. So, and I do. You mentioned Suzanne Stabile and Ian Cron's book, The Road Back to You. Yeah. I think it is an excellent book if you're just being introduced to the Enneagram. It's the one I recommend. Yeah.
It was a great book.
I mean, it just gives kind of a simple idea and explanation of each of the 9 types, and then like a checklist and some stories. And so it's a good place to start. Don't think it's the be-all, end-all, but no tool is. And so let's go back to that. The Enneagram is a tool. It's a tool for self-discovery, and it's a tool you can use in your spiritual development to understand your inner terrain, like what's going on with your soul. Who am I? Yeah. We all have 2 questions. Why am I here, and what am I supposed to do? Like, if I'm here, I'm supposed to do something, right?
Sure.
And we're fundamentally need-based people. And so the Enneagram is a tool you can use to understand what your lens is, how you came into the world.
How you see the world.
Yes, and that not everybody sees the world like you do.
Right.
And so it's in that knowledge, first for self, like you want to, and always really for self. This is a tool not to point at other people and identify or try to type anyone. It's for you to take in and learn about who you are. But as you do that, you want to learn all 9 spaces, because that's where the empathy and the compassion and just the knowledge that we're not, I mean, that right there, if people could really get it, like we don't all come in the world the same way. Yeah. And we have, many of us, trauma in our backgrounds. You and I both do, right?
Yes.
That shaped us. Yeah. And so the Enneagram helps you kind of unpack your spiritual formation, which is what I've been trained in spiritual direction, to understand that the things that happen to you, matter.
Yeah.
And we can either choose to own our own story or our story owns us.
Yeah, like
Brene
Brown
says, I
says,
was going to say,
we either walk inside our story or stand outside and hustle for our worthiness, I think is how it says. She says it. But I love that quote.
Yes.
And I think what you're saying is, and this is someplace I wanted to ask, and this conversation could go all over. So I'm apologizing right now. I'm going to try to keep it in order, but I'm always curious about all kinds of personality mapping and things like that. Like, you know, we have what we're born through, and
Your
the
DNA.
day we're born, our DNA, right?
Yes.
But even that can be, you know, a child can be born and maybe in utero, mom's life was completely chaotic and crazy, and there's already environmental that's been affected
in
there,
the womb, absolutely.
in the womb. So, but we do have DNA, we do have that. But then you also have the environment. And I've always been curious, it has to be a combination that creates who we are.
Absolutely.
It has to be.
And there's really three things. So I was trained in the narrative tradition of the
Okay.
Enneagram, and what that means is that hearing it, like that used to be around the campground, right? So you hear the different 9 types, and that takes a lot longer than we would have to really hear them, right? We can go around the map, and I can quickly give you maybe a name to help people understand and start having it, but you need to hear, and then you go spend some time and let God convict. Where do you fall? So the Enneagram also works well in blind spots, and that's all personalities do. But if they're really, because you don't know what you don't know. That's why you want to do the work, right? Is because you can learn. A lot of people know a lot of things about you that you don't know about yourself.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
And when you take in the Enneagram and start doing the work, most people say they know they've landed when they feel like somebody just opened their mail. Like I almost felt exposed. It was a really hard weekend for me, the time I really got the teaching. And so
you didn't like something.
No.
Okay.
And I didn't like knowing that all these other people that were also learning this information, as well as the people that were teaching it, like the coach, that they probably knew things about me that I didn't even understand about myself. That felt very uncomfortable and exposed to. But so let's go back to the intelligence centers, because I think that's a really good place to start.
Okay.
And it's not how
and that's the head, the heart,
the head, the heart, and the gut. And it's not how, like, I don't believe in the Road Back to You, she uses this. I mean, there are other books that do. But for me, when someone's trying to figure out where, just learning it for the first time, it's the place to start. So let's start with our gut people. We're going to go backwards. 8, 9, and 1. Okay?
8, 9, and 1. Okay, those are all together.
8, 9, and 1. They are the gut center, the gut intelligence center. In the gut center, the question for the 8, 9, and 1 is, how am I? That's just a question, right? All 3 centers have the question, how am I? These people are feelers, intuition. It's a somatic knowing and learning. They feel things deeply, and they
in
react.
their gut?
In their gut, yes, usually. And they say the cells from the brain and the gut, that is its own brain. They can find gut cells in the brain and vice versa. So they feel things, and they move to action based on that. You know, you hear people, I just know I'm supposed to do this. It's my knower. Those are usually your gut people. Their struggle is with anger, control, and guilt. That is they each have a different way they respond to it, but that's their core drive. Core vice is around anger. So our 8 is usually called our leader or our strong person. And different when y'all start doing any research on the Enneagram, people name it the way they want to do it. I do it by the gifts of God that they're supposed to bring to the world, because that's how I view where I'm supposed to do with the Enneagram. And so the 8, the strong person. Okay, these people are bold, decisive leaders.
Okay,
you know you're an 8 as soon as I say that. They can walk in a room and command attention just by their energy. They have more energy than anybody on the map.
Wow.
And how they deal with anger is they vomit it out. So when they get mad, and they feel, and usually their core need is to not feel is to be loyal, that they won't be betrayed. Right? It's because something, I know we're going to talk about childhood wounds later, but all of these, you're shaped by some part of the wounding. And so somewhere along the way, the 8 thought that their control was taken away, and that felt like betrayal.
Yeah.
So they vomit their anger out, they go feel good because they got it all out, and then the rest of us are left like a puddle, right? So that's the 8, our strong one. Our 9s, and the next one in the gut space, are what I call the peaceful person.
Okay.
And they really need peace. These are people that you want to be around because they just kind of ooze off peace when they're in a healthy place, that they're calm, they can look at both sides of things, they go with the flow and merge with people that they care about and love. What happens to our 9s and their problem with anger is it's passive aggressive. So they push it down because it's not good to have anger. I want to be at peace with everybody. So they'll accept a fake peace instead of the real one. So they have passive aggressive, and that's how they deal with anger. And then our 1s are called the good one, or the moral high code one. And these are people that need things to be right. They see things right when they walk in that aren't right, that are crooked or things, and they're morally amazing people, and they're reformers in the world. But the way they deal with their anger is they kind of put it on their back. If this microphone wasn't here, I'd do my little backpack thing, because it's not good to be angry. That's somewhere along the way, that's what they were taught. I mean, anger is a natural emotion. It's what we do in anger that can get us in trouble. But because they kind of carry it along, it becomes bitterness, and it roots in that. And so that comes out in like a critical spirit and a judgmental spirit.
Okay.
So that's our gut people, 8, 9, and 1. You want me to go to the next one, or you have any questions about that?
No, I think it's great.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The rain is.
Yeah.
But we are cozy inside.
Well, if Kyle makes us come and do it another day,
I know.
we will, right?
This is great. We're just listening carefully.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
So
So
if
those
you're
are
looking
our gut
at a
people.
diagram on your screens, or however you pulled one up, then we would go to the heart space, and this is
Okay.
our 2, our 3, and our 4.
Okay.
And I always tell people, you've got, and then actually, when I'm teaching, you don't even want to put your hands on your heart and think about people that have that. So the struggle for the 2, 3, and the 4 is shame, embarrassment, vain management, image. Okay. The question for the 2, 3, and the 4 is, how are we? People in the 2, 3, and 4 care more about what you think about them than they should, right? Because really the only opinion that counts is God's. So 2, 3, and 4, and they, again, manage that in 3 different ways. So the 2 doesn't feel worthy of love, and so they're going to do for you. These are the church ladies. They're always around doing everything for you. Their gifting is they can see what needs to be done even before you do. They even sense your needs before yours, but they're not usually very good at owning their own, right? And so, but our 2s are trying to earn love by doing for you. And they're usually called the loving person, right? So that's how they do it. The 3s, same thing, don't feel worthy of love. Somewhere in their childhood, didn't feel like they were seen or noticed unless they were doing something right. So a lot of applause happens. Often it can be either the firstborn or the baby, right? But they felt love from their parents. Not that their parents did anything wrong, but the way they felt love was when they were
being
applauded.
Yeah.
And so our 3 is often called a performer. I call them the inspiring person, because when they do become healthy and do their work, instead of saying, look at me, they point to the one that can help people change and transform. So, but the 3, the way they deal with shame and embarrassment is they are chameleons. They can go in and out of the room. It's not a conscious thing. Shape shifting and being whoever you think
need them to be.
They need to be. And then our 4. So our 4 is often called the special one, the unique one. They truly need to be known. Often they're creatives, but doesn't have to be. I actually call them the creative person, because it's not just about music or art. It's noticing and seeing the creativity in the world that God brings. That's their gift. These folks, how they deal with what happened and not feeling worthy, is it's almost like they have a mirror, and it's facing everyone else. They can see the beauty in the world and others, but somewhere they feel flawed. So in that not feeling like they're enough, maybe something wasn't right when they were created, they take on this persona that I'm different and I don't belong. And then I need to be special to stand out, to get your attention. When really that's pushing, it's not what they want, There's a thing called push and pull. If we had more time, I'd explain it, but maybe we do that another time. But it's a real big part. So that's our heart space, 2, 3, and 4. The vice is about shame and embarrassment and just image management. Like, want you to think I'm successful. That's a big thing for the 3s, The 2s, I want you to think that I do everything for you, so you need me. That's how I'm going to earn your love. And the 4 is like, I want you to know I'm special and I'm unique, and it's okay if I stand out different. Love me for me. Right? And the question for them is, how are we? And then if we move in, any questions about?
No, I just, you can't help but listen to this without like putting the lens back in yourself and like,
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I'm just sitting here thinking and contemplating a lot, because I hear a lot of myself, because shame is definitely a part of my story and a part of, something that I've, that's been a big part of my story.
So after we finish the next set, I'd love to talk about how you kind of do some work to figure out where you are and why that's important. But
okay.
So 5, 6, and 7, just so we finish the map. Yeah, half the time I don't finish the map.
Yeah, no, we're going to finish the map today.
Yeah, I'm not telling you what I am yet, but I'm not a head person. So 5, 6, and 7s, head intelligence, okay, IQ. These are people, their question is, am I safe? Am I safe? They're all dealing with the core vice of fear. And they have, again, 3 different ways of dealing with it. So our 5 is usually often our wisest person on the map. They often wear glasses. They loved, you were talking about doing research during COVID. They love information. Information makes them safe. Yeah. The more and more information I can have, the safer I'm going to be. Usually these are very boundaried people because they're dealing with fear. And so they fear that you might get in their space. And they only have a certain amount of energy, right, every day. So that's our 5s. Information is the way, they're often called the wise person. That's what I call them. And if they can learn to share that wisdom and not use it as a boundary, it's a gift, right? But so that's how they deal with their fear. Our 6 is right in the center of the fear. And this person we all have fears. All 9 spaces have fear. But the 6 is like almost obsessed with the fear. It's like an angst. Like my sister is a 6, and first time I was teaching the Enneagram, I watched her pull her hair like, oh, y'all don't all think like this every day? Yeah. It's what if, looping questions full of doubt. Yeah. However, I call them the faithful person. They're loyal and true, and when they can step out and do like what you've done here, do it scared, have courage, that's their gift they bring to the world. So usually how they manage their fear is by asking lots of questions and getting underneath someone. Like they want to be like the 2 man instead of the number 1. Like if I'm following someone, then they're responsible. I'm safe underneath that covering, right? And so that's part of how they manage. And they have a lot of self-doubt. So their work is to step beyond that and know, mistakes lead to success. If I make a mistake, well, I'll learn from it and I'll get back up again instead of being polarized by the fear. That's the work of the 6. And then our 7, last but certainly not least, but I always teach it with the way of it being the 7 because our joy person is often hopping from one thing to another. So our 7 is the way they manage their fear is they don't believe they can handle their fear, so they don't want to think about it. So life is lived up here with unicorns and rainbows, and we jump from one activity to another, and that's how we manage our fear. Is by not slowing down, not understanding who we are because they don't think they can take it, right? But when they learn to do the work, then they become more settled and they actually are the people to bring joy to the world and to know that life is a full circle, right? Highs and lows. When they can learn to start dealing with the reality of that and not running from it, they become the person that brings joy to the world because you can have joy in all circumstances, right? So, and then it even really gets, the Enneagram is simple. It's really simple overall, but it is complex at the same time. There's multiple layers. Sure. So that was the intelligence center route that I just explained. Okay. If you add instincts to it, which is I'm a big proponent of, then your 9 becomes 27 spaces. And there's 3 types of 3s and 3 types of 5s. So, but that also should help people. Any of you that feel like, don't put me in a box, the Enneagram is designed to get you out of the box you're already in. That's why it's a great tool. Okay. Now, I believe, though, it's a tool. And what that means is it's not perfect. You don't necessarily have to know the whole history of what it is to use the tool. Tools, none of them are perfect, but they can be good. And you can find what parts of it that you want to use. I believe that this tool needs to be used in conjunction with soul work or spiritual realm because that's where it sets it apart from any of the others. The Myers-Briggs is that, so here I am, here's my flaws, and you do find yourself normally through the flaw. Yeah. Because we, as humans, that's how we see ourselves, unfortunately. We're easier to see us in our mistakes than our gifting. But once you find your space, then you can work on moving. So I actually fall in the heart category. I'm a transforming 3 on the Enneagram. Okay. And so what that means for me is that...
What do you mean by transforming?
So I don't believe anybody's a number, right? We're all created in the image of God.
Okay.
And so when I teach it, I want everyone to walk in with that. I'm transforming. I'm growing, right? I find myself on a map, but I'm not a number. I'm a child of God. Okay. So as a transforming 3, my path to becoming more whole and integrated is I'm a heart, so I need gut, and I need head intelligence. So that means for me as a 3, I'm going to connect to the 9 and the 6, if you're looking at that, and find harmony. Yeah. And so first the work starts with figuring out where you are. And that could take a year to longer with some people. Yeah. I mean, part of the journey is you want to learn about all the spaces. as you're learning about yourself, recognizing that Christopher Hortz, who wrote The Sacred Enneagram, another book I love.
The Sacred Enneagram.
The Sacred Enneagram. Okay. I hope I didn't butcher his name too much. Forgive me, Chris. I'm sure you might not ever watch this. So, but if I did, it's
he's going to listen.
It's Hortz or something, yeah. So Chris is amazing, and he uses the analogy, and I've used it for years, of the essence. So a person that comes in the world, this is going to go back to one of your first questions.
Yeah.
How do we know? Like, what formed us? How do we know, right? So we come into the earth. God gives us DNA. He creates us perfect in every way as a baby, right? And why do we all love babies? Their essence is they smell good. They
Sometimes.
smile and coo. They're looking for your attention. And they don't know that life's going to hurt you, right?
Yeah.
They haven't gone through all that. The hardest thing is they came out of the womb, and some of that's harder for some of the wounding can start there.
Yeah.
But by and large, they really don't know yet that not everybody's going to not like me.
Yeah.
You know, that I'm going to have to shape shift who I am to win approval. So that perfect essence, that's what you think of. So the Enneagram helps you excavate, dig deep back to that, who God created you to be. So I believe 1/3 of who you are is just your natural DNA how God put you together, right? How you were going to come into the world, doesn't matter what family, whether you were adopted or were raised by your biological parents. Everybody that studies the narrative type believe that you would be what you were going to be, no matter what you went through. Okay. However, what you go through does shape you. And so the next third is nurture. So that 1/3's nature, 1/3's nurture, right? And this is, no matter what kind of household you grew up in, as early as a little kid jumping on the bed, monkey's on the bed, mom's got a migraine, comes in and says, bye, stop jumping on the bed, you're going to hurt yourself, whatever. Child goes,
I'm bad.
That didn't please mom. I'm bad. I need to shape and do something different. Which the mom was just being a mom. She didn't want her kids to fall off, right? So that's so it's 1/3 of how you were. And some of us, trauma, you mentioned that. Like, when you have big things in your family, it does have a significant part of how you were formed. And then the third is choices. So nature, nurture, and personal choices. So around 5, I think, it's probably even younger these days, sadly. But around 4 or 5 is when a person usually starts indicating that not everybody likes me. There's cliques or circles. It used to be so much later in our generation, which is so sad for the generation that all the kids that y'all are raising right now. Mine are grown, but they're still not all the way formed, and I've seen it from the very little age. And so when I realize that mom doesn't like what I'm doing, or my girlfriend only likes me if I wear a pink shirt to her like she's got on, then that becomes a personal choice where I start shape-shifting maybe who I really am to earn something. Earn approval, earn love, earn respect.
Yeah.
So that's how I believe you come to your space. People always ask, at what age is it formed? Most Enneagram experts, which, that's 20 years plus to be an Enneagram master. I'm a little underneath that, about 12 to 13 years, I think, when I added up last, is so usually in children, you can see the harmony. That's so much why I love the harmony way too. By 6, 7, you can start seeing, but you're going to see 3 spaces usually. And then you'll see life moving.
Okay, what do you mean 3 spaces?
Okay, so the harmony, let's go back to, so you feel like that you're a transforming 6 right now, right, on the Enneagram?
Oh, we didn't talk about that yet. We haven't talked about myself yet. But let's just let's say so during that season, I read The Road Back to You.
Right.
And first, I can resonate with some 3. I can resonate with some 4. And I can definitely resonate with some 6. At first, I thought maybe I'm a 3. Then I thought, no, I'm a 4. Then after about a week of thinking I was a 4, I decided I was a 6.
Right.
And I read somewhere, I think the 6s have a hard time making decisions.
Self-doubt.
And so I'm like, that makes sense. I don't know. To be honest, I kind of stuck with that. It felt right. I definitely have a core. Safety is very important to me. I can see that third of coming in of what my childhood and why safety is important to me. I don't know. I kind of see a lot of myself in a lot of the numbers. So, and I'm sure that's right.
Yeah,
normal.
We have the capacity to have all 9 spaces, right? The gifting and the non-part. So there's a concept, true self, false self, right?
Okay.
True self is that essence, who you are, no agenda. It's that I don't have to make you like me, and just core essence, right?
Okay.
That's true self. It's good. It's not prideful. It's not pushy. It's just essence. Yeah. False self is personality, okay? Yeah. And so that really is what the Enneagram is about understanding how we all, ever since the garden, the fall of Adam and Eve, it was about the mistrust of God. God gave him one thing to do, right? Yeah. Don't eat of that tree. The enemy comes and whispers in their ear about, oh, you could be like God. You know, he just is keeping things from you, and made them start not trusting him. And so what happens is we as humans, ever since all the way back to what we inherited, is we all live in a state of what would be called reactive mistrust. Okay? So what happens is I don't feel like I'm safe. I don't think I can trust you. I don't really even know that I can trust God because I haven't even seen him, right? Or whatever. And so I need to look out for my own needs, and I start reacting versus being. Yeah. Right?
It's kind of like, you know, in trauma, when we think about trauma, I call them protective behaviors.
Yes.
It's like these are the behaviors that you learn in order to protect yourself, because at some point you needed to.
Yes. Yeah. And you put on all these things to help do that, and actually making like a mask. Yeah. And that's personality. Yeah. So the work of the Enneagram is to first own. You got to own what you are, right? Yeah. Because you can't acknowledge it, you can't work on it, right? Yeah. So you own it first. So that's about finding your space. Often that has to do with a lot of blind spots and things you don't see with yourself, but you start there, and then the work becomes you want to let your hands out. Like, it's these things that we've been using all these years to get us through helped us. Like, my childhood, I needed a lot of what I did to get through. But I don't need that. It's not serving me well anymore. So I want to learn to let it go. Yeah. And I want God to bring out the gifting of how he made me versus that false self and me reactive. So when you do Enneagram work and you learn about yourself and start studying, the soul work is that you can recognize when you're about to be triggered, when you're making a decision that's based on reactive mistrust versus just essence and being. And when you do that, that pause, right, is huge. Viktor Frankl writes about the pause. And in that moment, and it's milliseconds, right? Yeah. You could, I'm about to go down that road because I'm feeling this. Yeah. And that triggered something that happened when I was 7, whatever.
You're talking about becoming self-aware.
Yes. And so the Enneagram helps in that awareness journey to awaken to who you really are.
Yeah. Finding your, and honestly, Kelly, that's the journey I've been on for a long time is that awareness, becoming aware of who I am, and it creates so much compassion, because then you can see the behaviors that we do that we just detest in ourselves, where they come from, and then you can just say, oh, sorry. I wish I could have been there for that,
Well, in my spiritual direction training, the first thing they said was, it's called your noonday demon. It's a thing your whole life. I'm not going to do that tomorrow. I'm not going to do it. But by noon, it might have happened 50 times, right?
That's interesting.
And so it's an Achilles heel. And that's the importance of learning. So when I did the intelligence centers with you, each center has its core vice. But then within that, each of the 9 spaces has an individual vice. That's part of, so when it's about figuring out who you are, it's about the vice. Like, when you think of that is who you are on your worst day, and it makes you want to vomit, bam, you found it. Well, that sounds really fun. But that's the way it works. And once you know that and have landed, then you can start doing the work for God to help grow. But your essence is not going to change. You are who you are. Your lenses, whenever, you might be a 6, you might be a 7, you might be 1. I don't know what you are.
I know 7.
But God knows it's not. Yeah, God knows, right? So going back to children, what I've seen. So my children both know the Enneagram. My son Brock's 23. My daughter Bryn is 20. I've been doing this for about 10 years, so they've heard the speak for a long time. It's really easy for children usually to identify what they are, because they don't have all the years of baggage and trying to get back, because it really goes back to how were you as a child.
Right. I remember that in the book.
Yeah. We do exercises on the Soulwell journey, that help you get back to who you were, 5 or 6, and then look at yourself as a junior high person and then high school, because that was back in the day. Now especially some of you might have been doing a lot of soul work, a lot of inner work, doing counseling, which is amazing. You might be a Christian that's been on the journey towards, becoming a better person for many years. Yeah. And so, but you've got to get back to the core memories of what made you do what you do and why. And when you can get there, then that's when this becomes a really beautiful tool. So in children, going back to Brock and Bryn, so for a while we thought both of my children were 4s. And so 4's that deep person, needing to be known, always feels like they're a little bit out of the picture, kind of sometimes or live life on the bench. And there's also this thing called stances. The 4s fall in what's called the inward, I call the inward stance or withdrawal. They go in when it becomes to dealing with people and how they move. They go inward before they make a decision.
Okay.
And so that's what we thought. Well, then Bryn realized, I was really just like 2 years ago, that she's actually a 1 on the Enneagram.
Wow.
So the 4, the 7, and the 1 are harmony. So Brock and her actually share harmony. And it's amazing when you see it. But I can go through, looking back as their mom, I can see all the memories that I know of. Now, there's ones I don't know of, but that shaped Bryn to that 1 space and Brock to that 4. And Bryn has so much 4 in her, but she has hardly any 7. And she's probably watching it at this one point. She's given me permission, but like she has a hard time playing. She's just uptight, like has to do the right thing, needs it to go the right way. Is a planner. Things need to be in order. You know, there's a way to do things right.
Yeah, and that's what number?
That's the 1. I mean, yeah, the 1. She's a 1. Yeah, and so
can
her
it also
harmony,
be a 6?
There's some things about 6s and 1s that some people get confused.
Yeah.
But 6s are not usually as structured, and things need to be a certain way. I would say
They're
overall.
not?
I mean, they could have some of that.
Okay.
Because here we go again. So the 3 ways your nature, nurture, choices.
Yeah.
And then you have people that were influencers in your life. And our brains are designed in such that we model, we mirror what we see.
Okay.
So even though we don't type people, we want to think about, the people that influenced me in my life, parents, coaches, mentors, we can take on some of that. So my father was an 8 on the Enneagram, no doubt. Like he was just, everybody that knew him, I lost him a long time ago, but he is an 8. And people often think I'm an 8 because and I'm married to an 8. So tons of 8 in me. Mm-hmm. So you have the capacity to have all those spaces. It really always comes back to the vice. And that's why doing Enneagram work, especially in the beginning, it can feel really icky.
So
and
why
hard.
do you need to know a number if you just can see the protective strategies? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
To me, the number is just about. It's also why, like, I'm not a big person. I tried to give you all a couple names on each of the spaces, but I don't even really in my teaching make that big of a deal of that.
Okay.
Because it really is more, it's a space. It's a space that has these characteristics.
So you
these
can,
flaws.
like a quick,
Yes.
like my uncovering things has taken years and years and years of journaling and running up and bumping up against things. Is this like a short step? No.
Soul work is slow work, right? So some people
I can't get a shortcut.
Some people do identify. Like the moment I heard the teaching, I knew I was a 3, right? Okay. And I don't want to be a 3 at the time. I love the 4 space. I want to be the 4. 8's powerful. I'd rather be an 8. Normally, if you really like where you are, probably haven't identified it because again, and this I know it seems like I'm hammering this point, but the growth is if you've got to see yourself in the vice, be able to own that. Right? And then start partnering with God on soul work to start letting go of things and grow to your gifting. Right? And so the reason why I love the analogy of the map is if you're looking at so where the edge is around each number, where the arrows are, that edge, if you think of that as like if we were on a road right now and they have those bumps, I can't remember what they're called.
Rumble strips.
Yes, the rumble strips. I need to memorize that word because I never can do it. But the rumble strips are what help you know, I'm off course, right?
Yeah, I got a lot of rumble strips.
The false self of the outside of that circle is where so as a 3, I can share in that space. 3s tend to be about productivity, getting it done, looking successful, boom, boom, boom. Don't slow me down with emotions. Like I got things to do today. So when I'm on my edge, that's what I wake up. That's my new name demon. What I got to do today, and then I start rolling. And in that rolling, I can roll over my family members, roll over a friend that needed me, take on some credit that wasn't mine, take a shortcut I shouldn't have done. Yeah. And so once I've learned this work, I'm on the, how do you say, the rumble
strip.
The rumble strip. Yeah. I'm feeling the vibration of that. That's the work of that.
We call it a wobble.
A wobble, yeah. And then you just partner with God to get back on track. Yeah.
So can we talk about me a little bit?
Yes, I
what
would
number
love
is
to
that?
talk about you.
Who wants to talk about themselves? That's me. No.
Yay. I would say good noticing, Tara.
Good noticing.
Good noticing. Yeah, I say that a lot.
My therapist says keep one eye on the inside. So
I like that.
Let's just use me for an example here. I identify with the performing of the 3, okay? Because in the book I read, I think it called it a performer.
The performer. Mm-hmm.
So I identify with that. I see that as a protective strategy that I used a lot. Which is the one that's kind of like a chameleon? Is that also
That's
okay?
the
That's
three.
where I can get into the space.
Yeah.
I totally felt like that in my junior high years, my high school years. Then, but I don't necessarily. But I am a deep feeler, and I am a headsy. Like my struggle is to get from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So there's like, I feel both of these things, and I know shame was a big thing, but I also know safety is a big thing. And I do use knowing.
Information is important
Information is important to me. It makes me feel safe. It makes me feel empowered.
So
there's
whether
a
you
whole
were
lot
a
of
3 or a
things.
6, or a 4, right? So
yeah.
you can have what's called, and they're on there, you'll see on the or what we call wings, right? So we'll just stay with the 3 space. As a 3, your neighbors or your wings are the 2 and the 4.
Okay.
So you could be a 3. I am a 3. I have some 2 in me. I like to do for others, especially in my younger life. A big part of how I think I earned affection was doing. But in my later years, I've definitely winged more to that 4 space. And I've always been a person, which is not real usual for a 3, that I want to sit down with you and tell me about your story.
Yeah.
I want to help you. That's just always been. So I kind of vacillated. It took me a while to figure out between the 3 and the 4, right? Well, it comes back down to the vice, okay? So 3's fear of failure, right? Fear of failure, wants to be successful, seen as successful. So when necessary, fake it till you make it. Yeah. Baby, I can do it all day long.
That's not me.
Okay, so then that helps you.
Well,
then
let me tell you that this is what I think. When I was in the performance mode, I only did what I knew I could do well. Mm-hmm. Okay, so in other words, I never once tried out for any sport my entire life. Mm-hmm. Because why? If I didn't make it.
Right.
That's the whole reason. I wouldn't try something I didn't make it.
Right.
I picked a degree plan. I picked boyfriends. Everything was about if I was not going to get lost or, left, or I couldn't handle the rejection. So where does that put me?
I never tell people what they are, but just in that part of sharing,
ask me a question
I heard the shared space of the 4. Okay,
you heard the shared space of the 4?
Right, yes. Okay. But so I heard a lot of head and heart. Okay, so one of the places that's hardest on the Enneagram map for people is being in between the end of the heart center, which is a 4, to the beginning of the head center, right? Yeah. So people say this is the longest journey in life.
Well, it's interesting because in my therapy work, we talk a lot about my throat. Yeah. I often feel tremendous, like when my body gets activated under fear or stress or shame or whatever, it's in my throat, which is interesting to me because that is the passageway here.
Yes.
And being able to speak, anyone who's been watching the podcast knows this for a while, but I wasn't allowed to speak about my biological father as a child. My brothers didn't know that I wasn't there.
And that's shaming.
Yes, shame. And it was a lacking of being able to have my voice, which is interesting, of the head and the heart connection there. Yeah,
what I see in people that are either a 4-wing 5 or a 5-wing 4 is a lot of struggle. It's almost like the head and the heart are fighting for control of how we're going to live our life, right? And so my son is a 4, and he wings the 3, but he has tons. He's closer to the 5, and I actually can watch it as he's thinking through things. There are core questions you start asking. If it's trying to figure out the difference between those, like, how important is knowledge to you? How boundaried are you? How that would help me maybe be able to help type yourself and let you know. But the core is when you really do this work, you sit with God and you get him to show you memories. Where did it start? Where did this feeling, if it's a 4 space, I'm not enough, right? Something might be flawed. Something just isn't right in me.
Oh, it was before I had language to even speak
go.
It.
So that's the 4 space. For the 5, it's I'm not safe. My needs weren't being met. Nobody can take care of me, so I have to learn to take care of myself. I got to be very rigid. That's the 5 space, the wise. So when I heard you talking, I heard a lot of like 4 space, but winging to that 5 for knowledge and information, a sense wanting to be known and understood, so wanting to learn about that. But I also heard some 3 space that how to fake it till you make it when you have to. It's not what you want to do. And normally, if you were a 4, if that's where you would end up, you will be. That's another way I know I'm not one. Is I can fake it to make it and get get over it and not think about it. Now with doing the soul work that I have done, I notice it and I don't want to go there. So being authentic is something I'm really working on.
Yeah.
4s, authenticity is their thing. And so every time they lean to that 3 and try to act like somebody they're not, it brings them even shame within themselves. Because it's not like the world knows they're responding out of not who they are, but they know it. Another important thing that a lot of
You're
people
making me think I ain't no 6 at all.
resonate with the 4 and the 5 is what's called push and pull. Okay. So both of them do it different reasons, and everybody might do a little bit of it, but it's more a theme in their life. So we want to be in a relationship. I want you to accept me. I want to be friends. So I pull you close. I pull you close, and you don't have to leave the room. This can actually happen just in our space here. I'm kind of feeling like you're getting there. This is what I want, but whoa. Because what if you knew the real me?
Oh, yeah.
And then you might reject me. So then I push you. And they spend their life back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
Huge moment for my daughter. I mean,
every number does this?
Every number does it, but 4 and 5 do it the most.
Okay.
So the 4's doing it because they don't trust that they will not be abandoned or rejected. They don't feel worthy, right? The 5's doing it is they don't feel safe. So I'm pulling people near me. I want to be close. I want to have a relationship. We were all built for it. But as you get close, and I'm about to give a part of myself to you, I don't trust. I don't trust that you're going to be able to meet my needs, that you're going to be who you say you are. And so I put up a boundary.
Yeah.
So 5s are way more boundaried than 4s.
Yeah.
My son, you can hear it in his speak. Like the reason why he's a 4 is he can share his feelings. He feels deeply for others. He's very like an empath. In the secular word, I would call that a burden bearer in the Christian realm. But he has so much, he loves knowledge. But when it all comes back to it, and I can remember him with him, the memories that shaped him are the ones that hurt him, humiliated him. He was bullied when he was a kid, things like that. Whereas the 5, it's more about they kind of were left to just figure it out on their own. And that's not been Brock's story. So anyway.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I can suspect from my studies of attachment that a lot of this happened. Kelly, I took a course recently about attachment.
Yeah, it's powerful.
And that one of the most profound things I learned in this course is that we have, by the time we are 11 months old, we have already established the way of doing relationships.
Yes.
So 11 months old, some children aren't even speaking. So their memory is mostly, implicit.
Yes.
Right? Implicit, the memory that they do not have.
Implicit is the memories you don't remember.
Yeah.
Explicit is what you know.
So most of what is shaping how we do relationship, how I interact, the push-pull that I have with you, which would be like an avoidant attachment, I think, anxious avoidance, something like that, is all being shaped by the time before we are even a year old.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important. So people ask me, how do I use the Enneagram in parenting? Well, the first tool of the Enneagram is to work on yourself.
Yeah, that's the first rule of parenting, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, you can't change anyone but yourself, right? And sometimes that changes everything.
Yeah.
So when you start doing that work, it's not so much about pointing and figuring out and trying to figure out your cut, because that then is using it as a tool that is pegging people.
As
so
a
you
matter
want to do it
of
for
fact,
yourself.
I have a perfect Tara Hutton story to share. When I did the Enneagram work, I thought, I say work, when I did my own, delving into
the Enneagram found you. Just say
Enneagram
it that way,
found me. I read the book. Well, then I found this lady, Beth McCord. She has a book for every number. So I, being the wonderful parent that I am, purchased these books for every single person in my family. And I think only my precious daughter-in-laws are the only ones that read them. Maybe my husband, because I read it out loud. Point taken, right? Like this is your work. And you can just, I passed them out, but 2 of the 9 read them. So
a major key in doing Enneagram work is to use it for self-discovery with God, to recognize your blind spots, the places that you're acting your false self for growth. And the more you study it, though, you want to study all the numbers, even after you think you've landed on the one, because that's going to help you interact with people and understand and have empathy for where they're coming from. We all have stories that we all are walking around with that nobody knows.
Right.
A lot of what we do at Soulwell on the journey is learning to process your story in the light with God, right? Looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we all have it to varying degrees. But the Enneagram work is really important, especially as parents. This is not about you beating yourself up or you figuring how you did something wrong that made your kids that way.
Yeah.
So we want to do Enneagram work with curiosity. You want to come with your hands open, being curious about yourself. And then when you notice things, don't be judgmental. You want to notice without judgment. You want to be kind to yourself. One of my favorite songs ever is by Andrew Patterson, and it's actually called Be Kind to Yourself. If you've never heard that song, everyone should go listen to it. I mean, sometimes
Andrew
I have...
Patterson or Peterson?
Peterson. You're right.
Oh, I know
Peterson.
him. I love him.
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple song, but it's so true. His lyrics are like, how does it go when the war against you is you and you? Like, and we got to be kind. You got to make friends with your enemy, right? Because you can't love well. You can't be a good parent if you can't heal from your story. And that's the attachment goes back to when a little 11-month-old, normally in an unhealthy home, there are sensing and growing in the womb. And we actually do exercises on the journey that help people with their womb stuff.
So when you say on the journey, let me stop you right here because I want you to have an opportunity to tell what this is.
Yeah.
Now, my husband... That's how I met you
years ago,
but I reconnected with you because Kyle went through your program.
Yes.
Recently, last year. Yeah. So tell us about what that is. When you say the journey, when you keep mentioning that, tell me what that is.
So I started what Soulwell Ministries is our nonprofit.
And we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you. And I started that 5 years ago. My story is very convoluted, lots of trauma. Years and years of doing work, counseling, all these things. I was a retreat junkie. I'd go to all of them, and I would love that feeling on the high of a women's retreat or a couples retreat, and then I'd come back home, and I'd almost end up more defeated afterwards when I'm back in the valley, and I don't have the tools to help live more in that joy space, to have contentment. And I was involved in a program for years and facilitated. I know you and Kyle went through it, and it was a great program, but again, it didn't leave me with the tools. And so on my journey to figuring out who I am and what I'm here for, what God showed me is that life is a journey, right? And so what we know about transformation and change is it is possible. It happens over time, incrementally, in community. And so I wanted to create a ministry that has to do with going on a journey. So it's a series of 3 retreats. Their spiritual formation in general. It is a Christian ministry. You don't have to be a Christian to come, but just know we are unapologetically Christian. The first weekend is about awakening to yourself and to your story and to the movement of God in your story. The second weekend is called Arising, and it's about rising into the gift of who God made you to be. And we use the Enneagram in that weekend. We do it a little bit at the end of the first one, but we dive deeply on the second weekend Arising. And then the third weekend is called Abiding. And it is about learning, now that you've learned a little bit more about who you are, you've done it, what does that have to do with the world? What's your mission and your purpose? And how do you stay connected to the vine and not burn out? Because most of us, especially women who become Christians and moms, we burn out because we're doing for others and we don't take that time. So I've always been a person that, I know y'all are hearing, I talk really fast. I'm on a race every day, all day long. I'm in the rat wheel, and my work is to learn to slow, which is funny. God gave me a ministry that's teaching people to slow, and it's the hardest thing in the world for me. But I had no idea before I started doing this work like 15 years ago what was going on in the inside. Who was I? What is my inner terrain? Because for me, stopping to look at that would mean slowing down and not being productive. And would mess up me being successful, So I just ignored it and pushed it down. And that made me more of like a shell. Everybody else thought I had it all together and homecoming queen and top of my class, all those things. But inside, I was broken. And so, and we all have spaces of that. Most of us don't naturally learn how to do inner terrain work unless something happens traumatic and you need help. And then you get usually on it. And so some people come in with lots of baggage. Some people have been doing work a long time. Specifically, when God and I went to work on it, it was like, it's not a cookie cutter journey. Everybody's going to come in. We're going to do things as a group, but different activities, experiences, knowledge, and then you go sit. So we teach people actually how to be still.
Just sit quiet.
Using the old, none of it's new age. It's all the old spiritual practices. I like practices. Some people call them disciplines, but that seems like no fun to me. I like the word. There's me winging in my seventh space. I like practices. So what it means is we're going to practice and do it over and over, not to be perfect, but to make it permanent. So things like learning to breathe, learning to slow down, learning to let go of all of this personality. All of that helps you become a more centered, loving, caring, empathetic person, and then helps you grow into who what are you here for?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it's a beautiful journey. It happens. You sign up for all 3 weekends at one time. They happen over a course of 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
And we do it. We're just now moving to our new home in Palestine, Texas, at the Methodist. It's called Lakeview. So it's a nice retreat center, gorgeous grounds. You have some time by yourself. You have your own room, your own bathroom. And it's a place to do work with God and self-discovery, but to do that in community. So you're not alone and you have people undergirding you.
Yeah.
So we have spiritual directors on the journey. That's what I am. We have Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram coach. And then we have counselors that are there, just if you need appointments like that. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Kyle really enjoyed it. I signed up. I was supposed to go.
You're going to come this fall, this coming fall.
Yes. After my son graduates.
Right. So that's spring,
fall,
right? And then fall.
Yeah, exactly.
Fall.
Yes.
With your friend. Don't forget
her.
her.
So I love doing this work. I also hate doing this work. I will say parenting brings up so much of it.
The skeletons in your closet,
it brings
for
up,
sure. Marriage and parenting.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think it's important. It's really the whole crux of what Mama's Well is. Mom Well had so many meanings for me. It's a soul well. Your soul is well. But it's also our soul is a deep well. Where we go to find strength and wisdom.
It's your core of who you are. Your essence is in your
I'm
soul.
holding it down.
That's where you meet with the divine. That's where
Yes.
you meet with the divine.
Yes.
And like even as Christians, like people talk about the soul. If you see how many hymns or songs or like contemporary Christian songs that have it about soul, but no one really knows what it is. Right? Well, it's the place. It's the place of you at your purest where God wants to meet you. And the problem is life puts clutter in there. We get hurt, we have trauma, we make bad decisions, and so it's full of all this junk. And so the Soulwell journey is about getting the junk out of the trunk, girl. And that way you can have more intimacy with the people that you love and the people you want to do life with, and then with your Savior.
To me, I haven't experienced it yet, but it's a time out. To do that work, you know, because we're doing that work. If you're parenting kids from hard places, you're doing that work.
Amen. Yeah.
Whether you're aware of it or not, we're doing the work. But to step out of the space and to not be needed and to not, you know, just to step into that quiet space is very sounds awesome.
And then when you understand people's woundings, like your children's and other people's children, it just will help you. You know, I remember when Bryn was like in 5th grade, and that was when all the kids, I mean, it just kind of starts getting brutal around 5th grade. I think it was 7th for me, but these days it's 4th and 5th grade. The cliques start showing all that. And, you know, she would come back in and be hurt on the day, and I all of a sudden started hearing myself how I was helping her process, right? And I could hear my wounding in it. Instead of encouraging her to look for the other, you know, this is when I was a lot younger, right? Look for the other, what happened. You don't know what that person's been through. You don't know. Hurt people.
Sure.
But healed people, with God's help, can help heal people. And that's the work that the Enneagram and the things you're doing here. I mean, I'm so encouraged by what you're doing. It's amazing.
I love it.
Good for you for doing it scared.
Oh, doing it scared. That's right. I'm doing it scared. Well, thank you, Kelly. Thanks for coming. Guys, thanks for joining us. I hope that you got like enough information. I know it's a lot and it can be confusing. Like I'm still a little bit confused about a lot. I mean, when you start talking about the layers, there's a lot of layers, right?
Yes.
But that's okay because really this isn't something you just, she's been studying for 10 or 15 years. So this is just another tool. It's another thing in your toolbox to explore. And so I just encourage you to pick up the book.
Without judgment. Explore with curiosity.
Explore with curiosity. That's one of my favorite words, curiosity. Because usually we go into something, or at least I do, with certainty. But when you're certain, you miss
what you don't
things. So curiosity and practice is another great word. Like so we're just moving through life, and the more we get to know ourselves, the more we can have compassion and empathy for our children, because really the things that are ruffling our feathers that they're doing, which is easy to point to their behaviors and say, I'm upset because of that. It's
brushing up against your bruising.
It's brushing up against something in us that we're not okay with. Whether it's screaming, whether it's hollering, whether it's sad, whether it's whining, those are all places in ourselves that we haven't nurtured and we haven't allowed to be.
Our inner child. And that's why that attachment work is, and it goes hand in hand with everything we do at Soulwell and Enneagram, because if you want to have children that live in attachment, right?
Yes.
Healthy attachment, you've got to do it.
You have to look at your own
you can't
attachment
give what
work.
you don't have.
That's right. You
Yeah.
cannot give. Man,
Cannot
she's
give.
been listening. You've been listening. You and I have been channeling
We have
each
some same
other.
things going on. Yeah, it's good.
So
It's good
anyway,
stuff.
thank you for coming, guys. Share the podcast. I would love to hear, and I know Kelly would love to hear. We'll put her email in the show notes, but I'd love to hear your stories of your Enneagram work. What you're doing. Share some stuff with me, because you can tell I'm just a baby on this. I'd love to know more. So, thanks for joining us. We will see you next week.
Mama's way.